Hey folks, JD here, and today we are looking at this. This is the transmitter for the Eachine Racer 180. Now, this is kind of something a bit new. I haven't just looked at a controller before, a transmitter before, but to be honest, I think with this guy it's really much needed. This is the Eachine i6, but also known as the FlySky i6 as well. Now, if you have decided that you wanted to buy the Eachine Racer 180, this transmitter is probably going to come with it. Now, that's great. It's already bound, it's already set up, all the controls are favoured towards the Eachine, so you shouldn't have to do any configuration whatsoever, as the controller board is already going to be on the Racer, so there should be no configuring at all. But when I first had this transmitter raised a couple of questions as to what these four sliders do here, and what if I did want to upgrade the firmware or just go into the transmitter and have a look at some of the options. I mean, this transmitter is capable of being bound to other quadcopters and other tilt rotors at the same time. Obviously, as I said at the beginning of the video, this is set up for the Eachine Racer 180. I am not going to be changing any of those settings. I don't recommend you do either, because it's already set up by the people at Eachine to ensure a very safe flight and to ensure that the tilt rotor isn't damaged in any way. And that it will respond to the movements of the sticks and to all the buttons and switches appropriately. So, for this, all we're going to do, we're going to have a little look and see how we get into the menu and then what these different switches at the top here do. So, if I just bring this a bit closer, normally when you turn on the transmitter, this is what you get. Just a little telemetry screen, battery, and that's it. When you've turned on the tilt rotor as well, the tilt rotor battery will be under here, just alongside. Just underneath the TX you'll have RX on there as well. But that's it. When you alter the trim as well, you'll see these little trim bars here will start sliding up and down depending on how much trim you're applying to the tilt rotor. If we turn it off, if you wanted to just get into the main menu, all you would do is push these two trim buttons in and then turn on the transmitter. Now you'll notice there's a little model plane there. This now means that if you hold OK, you can get into the system menu or the function setup as well. Now obviously you can have a little look at those just by pressing OK, scrolling down all the different menu options there, and then going into whatever mode you want to. Likewise with the function setup, using the up or down arrows here and then OK, and then you can go up and down all the different functions there. Now, as I say, I don't recommend you change anything to do with the quadcopter or with this transmitter. I don't recommend you change anything with the tilt rotor with this transmitter, because it's set up to fly properly. So what I'm going to do is just cancel out of that so no changes are saved. Right, there we have it. As you can see, when I turn on the transmitter, the telemetry screen comes on, and that's it. But when this is in transit, one of these switches is to push itself down. When you turn on, you now see and hear that. So all you would do is turn off the transmitter, flick the switch back up so all four switches are in the upward position, and then turn back on. Once again, any of these switches can be down and the transmitter will not turn on. Just flipping the switch back up and turning it on means that it will work. Right, so these switches, these are set up as SWA, SWB, SWC, SWD. Basically, in short, for switch A, switch B, switch C, switch D. Now, switch A is for the angle mode. Switch B is for acro, so when you're up at a certain height, you can flick this down and the tilt rotor is meant to just stay at that particular altitude, almost like an altitude lock rather than an altitude hold. Switch C is throttle hold, so when you have your transmitter on, obviously all switches are up, but then afterwards when you want to unlock and get started with the tilt rotor, you've got to push this into switch 2, and then push this into the bottom right. Then on the tilt rotor you'll hear a couple of beeps, meaning that the motors are then unlocked. That means you can then fly. And then likewise, if you were to push switch C into number 3, that has the same as number 1, which means that the throttle will then be held until you unlock it in switch number 2. Switch D in this particular moment isn't set, so there we are. That could be a preset that you could, if you're binding this to another quadcopter, you could use this for another quadcopter. But in the tilt rotor, I did use it a couple of times and found that it didn't do anything at all. So whether it did, and it was so subtle I didn't notice, but at this particular time I'm going to say that switch D had made no difference whatsoever. This is just a little basic look at it, just to go through a couple of features, a couple of functions, tell you how to get into the menu. Obviously, this does have hundreds of different features that you can use. Obviously, it's just down to whatever you want to use it for, and whichever quadcopter you want to bind it to as well. Oh, one other thing, the bind switch is down here, this little button there. So there we are, folks. Thanks ever so much for watching and listening. I've been JD, you've been fantastic as always. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And hello and welcome to all the new subscribers. I hope you're enjoying the channel. So until next time, my friends, happy flying.